It's buffering right now, so this is the awkward moment when we wait for the progress bar. I know you guys can't see anything on the screen. And then I have to mute the YouTube, otherwise I hear echo. Cool, welcome everyone. Happy May, happy Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. We're here today with Design Buddies and ADPList on celebrating Asian Pacific Islander story in design. And so if you guys are wondering what Design Buddies is, I'm Grace. I founded Design Buddies in April 2020, and I work as a full-time designer at Electronic Arts. But Design Buddies is the largest design community in the world. We have over 21,000 buddies. We are partners with Amazing Design People List, and we have a lot of events like this, a nice large wholesome community on Discord, and a lot of fun events and fun giveaways and fun things happening on Discord. So you're welcome to join in with the Buddy fam. And then I'll hand it off to Winona to introduce ADPList.
Hey everyone, my name is Winona. I am sure a lot of you probably already know me. I'm the global community lead here at ADPList. And for those of you who haven't heard about ADPList, we're a community based on making connections, a platform where people can find, book, and meet mentors around the world. Our mission is to foster an inclusive space and support network for designers to come together, learn from each other, and strive to be better. So if you haven't had a chance to give us a try, feel free to hand over to adplist.org and get started. And also, if you enjoyed the session today, make sure you follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. We're always doing something with Design Buddies, with the other partners out there. So definitely keep an eye out for our latest news on our LinkedIn page. Pass it back to you, Grace.
Thank you. And so for our adventure today, we'll start with intros and we'll go through some questions/discussion topics. It's meant to be like a coffee chat style. So imagine we're all in a coffee shop, we're all buddies and amazing designers with together. And if in the chat, if anything resonates with you, feel free to comment your story as well. And yeah, we'll have some room at the end for questions or some topics you guys want to bring up. But we have some like prefab questions/topics at first. And after we go through the discussion, at the last 2 minutes at 5:58 p.m., we'll do a group photo. But this is for social media. So if you guys want to be on camera, on announcements, definitely be in a group photo, and we'll have another wave for Instagram story. So this one really say hi to the camera, and I record it for Design Buddies Instagram story, and then we'll end it there. But yeah, let's get started with intro. So for introductions, we will, I guess, go in alphabetical order. And for introductions, let us know, and then we'll kind of alternate. Or feel free to just like, if you see anything you want to comment on, feel free to just bounce off each other's responses as well. And so for introductions, let us know like what cultures or ethnic groups you'd identify with and what you're doing now and how you got into design. And so alphabetical order. So we'll start with Guramrit.
Yeah, thanks, Grace. So my name is Guramrit. You can call me Amrit. So I kind of identify with the Sikh community. So basically Sikhism, which is like the world's fifth largest popular religion. It's a monotheistic faith and believes in equality and service to others. I currently work as a senior strategy manager for Telus, one of the largest Canadian telco companies. My journey to design is a very interesting one. I started doing computer science when I was in Singapore, and having been always curious about how things are kind of designed and what that thought process of like the button color or with the button placement or different color choices. I was like very curious about like, why are we making these decisions and who is making these decisions? And I really hated computer science too. That was another reason for me to travel across the globe from Singapore all the way to Canada to pursue a design degree, where I am. And I kind of stayed put in Canada because I really love Canadians. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Awesome, thanks for sharing. I also studied CS and then decided to go into design as well. My dad's in Singapore, so high five.
Yay!
Yay! High five. Cool.
I actually, my parents both worked at Telus, and so they both retired at Telus. They were working for like 25 years. So every single time the word Telus, I'm like, oh, my parents.
world.
I hope it's a good thing.
It's a good thing. That's a good thing for the most part.
Nice.
Awesome, Drill. Well, let us know your intro as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I identify with the Filipino community. So there's a whole video and there's like literally an Instagram dedicated to kind of debunking Filipinos because we are a bit confusing. We're not Asian Pacific Islanders necessarily, but some people actually identify that as that. But we are Asians. But then again, like different people identify Asians as different things. So we're like in this kind of mixed realm, I suppose, just because our bloodline is separated and has been kind of mixed around over the years. But so that's who I'm from. I actually am born in Vancouver, BC, Canada. So I'm a first generation from immigrant parents who came here in, I can't remember when, a long time ago, back when I was not around. And yeah, so I work for Copperleaf and I'm a product designer there. I actually just started 2 months ago and I was somewhat jobless, in and out in a whole entire thing for like a year and a half worth. So if you need to talk shop about interviewing and all of that kind of realm, I have fresh knowledge about it. As well, I run a design community called Vancouver Design Check-In. We do local events like regular design whiteboard challenges. Some of you may have came to our last workshop, and we're just kind of a chill community. We just have our little bi-weekly calls and you just hang out and you meet other designers, and that's kind of it.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. And that seems really useful. I feel like a lot of people will benefit from those whiteboarding challenges and those nice little wholesome meetups.
Exactly. I did exactly the same whiteboard challenge that I did when I got into my company, and literally the feedback was, I was like, hey, how's the feedback? Like, oh, you did great. Here's some ways that people tripped up. And then he told me that the one of the biggest reasons that they hire people at the company and the biggest, measure of success was if you can perform well in the design challenge.
Oh, wow. I never actually done a whiteboarding challenge. Well, yeah. Anyways, on topic, but Ying, would love to hear your intro too.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. My name's Ying. I identify as a first generation Chinese American immigrant kid. My family is ethnically Chinese. I was born in Japan. So I like to tell people that we speak a mix of Cantonese, Japanese, and English at home. So no one can really understand us if they pop in for dinner. So I'm currently a senior UX designer at Honeywell. I'm designing commercial security software for a post-COVID world. So that means building a product that adheres to our new health and safety guidelines and ensuring the right people are at the right place in the right time. I'm also a co-organizer of Ladies That UX Atlanta. We are an inclusive design community, and also a design mentor at ADPList, where I get to meet, mentor, and learn from really talented people all around the world. For me, my career was a really unique storm of growing up as a code switching immigrant kid and being exposed to nerdy interests by my bigger brother. And I actually started out in university as an architecture major because I thought I wanted to design physical spaces for people. But once I started taking digital design courses, it was over. Like, this is what I was meant to do. I love the problem solving, the collaboration, the technical mastery, and then the specific skills you have to build towards understanding the future of emergent technology. So yeah, really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. I also felt the same way, being born in America, having all this code switching as well and growing up. And parents are from Taiwan, Singapore. I used to speak Chinese at home all the time too. But yeah, thank you all for sharing. We're going to move on to our first topic is, what is your favorite tradition from your culture? Any favorite foods or festivals? And feel free to jump in if you want. Otherwise, we'll go in alphabetical order and then reverse.
I'm guessing that's me first.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I always go last, so I just default.
We can reverse. We'll reverse.
Yeah, let's reverse it.
Okay, let's reverse. There we go.
Yeah.
Reverse. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go reverse.
Got it. All right. On the spot. I like whatever my mom makes. So it's a lot of Southern Chinese cooking. So that includes a lot of like stir frying and like soups, a lot of healthy stuff as well. My favorite holidays are usually the big ones. It's Lunar New Year and Mid-Autumn Festival, obviously around food, right? And it's like a great opportunity for people to also kind of peek in and understand our relationship to not only our food, but to our culture as well. Another thing is like not really a culture or food, but like I've grown over the years to really appreciate when my mom's cultural superstitions pop up randomly throughout my life. You know, things like lucky numbers is one. So an example of that is like 8 is a lucky number in Chinese and 7 is not, it's a super unlucky number, but 7 is like lucky number 7 in the US. It's like a super lucky number. So there have been times when I've bought stuff and she's like, you need to get eight items of that. Or like I recently moved into a new home and it's like there's specific practices and customs you need to do to ensure a really like lucky and happy, you know, living in your new home. So it's kind of like these pop up randomly. And I find it really interesting because it's one of those things where it's like, oh, these are kind of like the nuances and the cultural touch points where if you grew up with your parents in the same culture, it's kind of like you don't really have to explain, you just kind of know. But when it's kind of like different, generationally different, you get to encounter it in like a kind of a surprising way. But I really learned to love those moments.
It's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Guramrit, I see you unmuted.
Yeah, no, so the funny thing, I could totally relate with the whole number superstitious, like, you know, number 4 being part of Singapore, like 4 is a no-go. It means death. So like stay far away from that. But the funny thing that for me being part of the Sikh community, there's a lot of great food, especially in the northern part of India. And it's like, you know, I bet 100% everyone has heard about butter chicken. Unfortunately, I'm vegetarian, so I don't know anything about that. But there's a lot of other food, like different types of curries, different type of lentils. So I'm blessed to be part of a community that has amazing food, and hence why a little bit of the size is getting a little bit bigger too. But you know, the other thing that I am very grateful about is not really a tradition, but it's more about a belief towards serving others. So if you've ever gone towards a Sikh temple, or what they call it as a gurdwara, there's always free food there. And something that we have as Sikhs always believe to contribute and serve others. And I think that's the tradition of helping to make that food and helping to serve that food. It's a big tradition for me to be part of. So that's something that I definitely enjoy being part of my community.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Definitely a lot of different foods that are really nice in Southeast Asia and also around all these Asian countries as well. Mm-hmm. And Gerald.
Yeah, I was just thinking, so also food is heavily for Filipinos. I have this kind of thing where our food doesn't look amazing, but it tastes great. And so every single time we have like, you know, Canadian people or someone who hasn't seen our food before, especially like during lunch, they're like, what is that? And then they try it and they're like, okay, this is the greatest thing I've ever had. Can I get more? Can you invite me over to your house, please? And then we do. Like lumpia. Pretty sure everyone's had lumpia. It's literally a spring roll, but it's just like Filipino version. And then we have kare kare, which is also one of my favorites. And it's oxtail, like braised in like peanut buttery sauce with like shrimp paste. And I'm sorry if I'm making everyone hungry here. And then
I love to say it's dinner time for a lot of people.
Yeah, I kind of figured that. No, we have just, and then like the main course is the deep fried pork, and that is a whole gong show in itself. We also have boodle fights, which is really, really cool. And you get like a banana leaf and you just put all the food in the middle and you get rice. And then you have just everything laid out, like everyone Google it. And then you just go. And the idea is like, you're just supposed to fight over the food and see who can survive. Other traditions that I also really love is during Christmas, to identify if you're in a Filipino home, you need a Filipino star. And that's how you know. You have a light up star, and you put it on the front window, and it just has different lights. And I guaranteed, they're probably singing karaoke in there, and they have like some live choir going on, and just a whole I've had too many parties, and if you ever come to our parties, they won't let you go away without having seconds or thirds, like, and you'll always have. I read in an article. I used to work at a magazine for my school, and I read in literally an article just on Filipino parties, and just all the intricacies around it.
I'm gonna try to sneak into a Filipino party now.
Really do.
Me too.
Yeah, I gotta get invited. So, Jarrell, the next party, you're inviting us for sure.
Yeah. Your place?
Yeah. In my 500 square foot apartment, I got you guys.
Sweet. I also really relate to your like lunchtime stories, especially as a kid. It's brutal because there's been plenty of times I brought my family makes Japanese food, so we brought like Japanese curry, which is like, immediately kids are like, yeah, that looks like poop, and you're just like, God, scarred forever, never gonna bring food to school, just eat PB&J.
Yeah. Luckily, a lot of my friends in elementary school were accustomed to. Well, we had like a lot of, we were primarily Italian, and there was like some Asian communities. So there was like a good number of Filipinos in our school when I was growing up. So they never really looked differently at my food. And so that was a bit of a nice thing to have, I guess.
It's really nice. I'm from the South.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the funny thing is that everyone wanted some piece of my food when I brought it to school or something. It's like, yeah, give me some, man. Or my food used to be stolen from me.
You have to protect it.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing. Feel free in the chat, share your favorite foods, your favorite traditions, or even photos in the chat. I see a lot of people commenting in the chat, so feel free to just share. And interesting enough, I was like the opposite. Like I remember my parents brought me like dumplings for lunch, and people like looked at me weird because I was like the only Asian in my school at kindergarten. So it was like interesting. But yeah, so we're gonna move on unless anyone has anything else to add for food and culture. I see.
I guess I want to say like kids who bring, I guess, the food that we mentioned to school nowadays, I feel like there's better acceptance. So I feel like a little bit of bitterness of like, why did I have to suffer? But now everyone's like snacking on like seaweed snacks and like, all more accepted now.
It's commercial. It's a bit commercialized. We had this crazy, and I'm so proud, but my friend's mom would sell lumpia at lunch, and it was like maybe once a month, and it would sell out. Like I would ask my choir teacher,
like sneak around like $1.
Yeah. And like it would be like $8 for a whole pack, and then my Filipino choir teacher would be like, okay, guys, we're gonna have to run. We're like 15 minutes in. Bring me the packs. We'd buy packs for everyone in the class just because it was so in high demand.
Your mom's an entrepreneur.
No, my friend's mom, but my mom also makes really good Filipino.
That's awesome.
I see someone talk about boba in the chat. I love bubble tea. I'm sure a lot of y'all love boba as well. But yeah, we have some other interesting topics we would love to cover as well today. So our next question is, how can everybody be better allies in the API communities? And anyone can jump in first. I'm going to post a question in the chat so the audience can keep up as well.
I usually like to start with don't go to the immediate like API person and ask, because not everybody is like an advocate or a champion or an active in that. And there's so many resources online as well. So it's not up to us always to do the homework for you. Sometimes we're happy to like share our stories and our experiences, but it can also take, an emotional toll as well. And yeah, there's so many resources online. I think for me, I would tell people to look up like the model minority myth and how that's like affected our cultural history, as well as like the perpetual foreigner stereotype, which is like if you don't physically look like the majority group, then people just assume you just got here, even if you maybe like generationally been here for a long time. So yeah, a lot of awesome resources online to familiarize with yourself. And then if you want to approach someone, you have to do like the double ask of like, can I ask you about this? And then ask. if they're okay with it.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think for me, education is very important. I think you need to be in terms of being allies. Like it's more about learning, asking questions, understanding what that group has gone through, what's the history behind it. Like, there are many different perspectives when you do end up chatting with an individual, have talked to different API communities. And I think having experienced racism and xenophobia firsthand, like on numerous occasions, like it's something that, you're not going to change this overnight. You're going to be able to kind of like push it provides you an opportunity to really teach and educate others. And I think that's, for me, being an ally is more about helping be educated first about what the different API groups are, and also how to engage in them. And like being respectful of each individual cultures and beliefs. And I think and education always provided, for me, provided that light at the end of the tunnel where we could all live harmoniously. Like I was very fortunate where I was born and grew up in a multicultural society in Singapore, where there was a lot of tolerance in racial upbringing. And it was literally fun because I used to go over to my Chinese friends during Chinese New Year to get the red packets, and it was like a cultural thing. But over time, you got to learn about the significance of those red packets and the significance of family, and they used to come over during Diwali and other occasions, and that community sense was really something that I grew up in. But when coming over to North America, like things slightly changed. I think that was where I think education became more important, to educate others of like, why do I have a turban? Why do I have a super long white beard? Or why do I have 5 different articles of faith that I carry? So those kind of things are some things that the bottom line for me is education.
I think extending on that, education is so important, and the sources in which you get educated from is also extra important. Like, I'm sorry to say it, but some of our parents, they pass on the knowledge, and sometimes that knowledge can get skewed. Sometimes that knowledge is a little old school. And personally, I've had to do a lot of rework of different races, of different cultures, of different things that my parents have told me before. And
Same.
I still hear, their voice in the back of my mind. And I still have to retranslate what I'm seeing, what I experience versus what they say, because, parents have a toll on you, have a toll on your subconscious somehow, right? As well as showcasing that you're an ally. I think it's also really important to do rather than just say. Like, we can easily just post on Instagram and say, support this, support that, support this. But are you actually doing anything about it? Are you actually like asking for people's experiences? Are you actually going out and trying to understand from your point of view and taking that kind of thing? Like, hey, here's my learnings. I talked to like all these different people, right? It's just a lot of show that I've been seeing lately. And personally, I'm very privileged to say that I haven't experienced racism towards me. It's just, again, like the multicultural element that I grew up in Vancouver. It's a boiling pot of different ethnicities. Like, my friends are all different ethnicities, and it just kind of happened to be like that. And we never looked at each other differently. And I think that was the most beautiful part. I think, especially with race, that we shouldn't look beyond race. We shouldn't color it a gray line. Let's just celebrate race. That was something that is a concept that not a lot of parents that I've talked to, not a lot of other generations actually understand, that we can celebrate races beyond just the stereotypes that you're fed in media.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, it's like, as I grew older, is understanding my parents are people with their own flaws, and then being able to understand the different layers when they tell me certain things growing up. Yeah, it takes practice, and it takes that really like conscious work to understand like, okay, this is kind of what they mean, but there's a lot of layers there involved. Um, I know for my parents, they were just working with the best knowledge that they had when they moved here, and just like what information would help our family succeed the most. And that information may not always wasn't always the most accurate or right.
Yeah, and it also stems from stereotypes, right? Like the generation stereotypes that have come down from like past interactions with different API communities, and also like, and I think we're fortunate that we live in a time where everyone is very well educated, and growing up with that, that sense of like, we are one race, like in the sense of like, there's a harmony that can grow. I think that's was very different 50 years ago, 100 years ago. And I think we do have to recognize that, it is generation kind of like hand-me-downs, I would say. And how do we break that cycle, or that vicious cycle of, stereotypes that shouldn't exist anymore? I think that's something that we definitely need to recognize too.
Yeah, definitely. Can also resonate with what all of you have to say. Just like, because growing up, I always taught that to my parents, like, be careful, like different races and stuff. And it took me a lot of time to really just understand that everyone's like human. It's like, it's okay. Everyone just like wholesome and survive with each other and stuff. And also like Jarrell, like, I haven't really, well, not that I know of, experienced racism because I grew up in a bubble, but I'm trying to learn about just like other people's experiences and how we can be allies with each other and everything as well. And our other panelist, Fiona, she unfortunately couldn't join us for today, but she also had something to share. So Ying, would you like to share?
Yeah, of course. So Fiona, on the topic of like allyship, she had said, being a good ally requires understanding the background and history of every and any group. So xenophobia and racism didn't just happen overnight. Even under the umbrella of API, we have so many different experiences and ethnicities. I don't think that being an ally is ever a completely achievable goal, but it's a constant process of learning and unlearning, which is something I'm also trying to do for other API groups I'm unfamiliar with. So that was from Fiona.
Just to branch on that a little bit, I think it's the curiosity element that really separates how you're going to learn, and if you want to learn in general, right? I was watching a show recently, and it kind of showed like, hey, there's a character that's learning the secret of life, but if you turn off your ears and you don't want to listen to it, then you're never going to learn it, right? So just asking those questions and being cognizant of what's going on around you, and being up to date with the news, and having open dialogues with friends who may have suffered from this, but you don't know because they're silent and they're scared. It's scary to be vulnerable, and it's scary to, you're with your friends, you're just hanging out, you're playing video games, and then all of a sudden something occurs and you can hear them silent, and you got to ask what's wrong, or how are you dealing with this? Or if they're not speaking, let them speak up instead and wait your turn.
Yeah, and just like, oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, plus one to that. It's showing up, but also giving space to those voices if they choose to or to not share. I think just that presence alone is huge. We're human, right? That presence alone, that camaraderie, that friendship means so much when someone's going through a difficult time.
Yeah, definitely plus one to everything as well. And this kind of leads into our next question, which is, what is one misconception about being Asian Pacific Islander that you'd like to clear up? I know we mentioned like vital minority, how that can be harmful. Definitely experienced that in my life as well, but we'd love to hear all of your thoughts too.
I think the one big misconception that I've heard time and time is like, one size fits all. Like, we're all the same. We're all Asians, or like, like, no, where API consists of like 50 different countries, 50 different like experiences, like demographics, cultural, social diversity. And I think understanding and harnessing that value of these overlapping identities and experiences like really drives like inclusion and innovation, right? Like it's like we need to be more understanding that, you know, we're not one size fit all. We're many different cultures, many different types of people, and you know, it's not all the same. I think that's a big misconception that I've heard many times, but I'll let the others, the panelists, talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. We're not a monolith. And while we may share some common threads, we each have our own like unique experiences. You can't just talk to one API person and then just like call it a day. I'm like, done.
Yeah.
It takes active work and effort towards it. I'd like to add as well is that our face is also not our only identity and heritage as well. Like also identify with being, you know, first generation, being a woman, being a huge nerd, like all these other things as well. So but it's kind of like this is the first thing people see. So kind of people lead with that, but also understand like we're all very multifaceted. You won't know until you take the time to learn.
Yeah, exactly. It's the stories that we share and it's the stories that we tell. It's all in the history. For example, I really wish that I learned more about Filipino history and religion and all the different folklore. Like that's something I kind of think about every now and then. And it's something I don't know if I was taught younger. I don't know if we were really not taught other different religions and spiritualities and backgrounds. It was just more like an overview or like, hey, here's ours. It's the best one. Like, what does that, what? Like, what does that mean, right? And so I think it just takes a conceited effort in order to learn more. And again, like that misconception is that you're right. Not every Asian is the same Asian. It is such a spectrum of history and different things that make us who we are. And we are different as we are people. And through our experiences, that kind of makes up our own community and how we belong to that community.
Yeah, I also felt similar of like, I've only experienced or learned about Chinese culture from my parents when they do share, and it's only one side of it. And it's only more recently that I try to learn outside, just like academic or scholarly or just online in general, just to round out my learning, to understand the historical and cultural touch points that shape their perspectives. Yep. As well. It's like, oh, that's why they think that way. Or so, oh, they experienced this when they were a child and that's why they have this viewpoint. I used to tell people I was bad at being Chinese because like I couldn't speak Cantonese like fluently, or I didn't understand this cultural thing that people thought I should have known, but I've stopped saying that. Like my experiences is just as valid as any others. There's no like right way of being a specific identity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely +1. And I saw David in the chat, just learning American European history 6 times. Oh yeah, I feel like the education, at least in America, we didn't really learn about other types of history at all. I'm not sure if it also happened to like Canada or other countries, but just want to call that out because I saw that and I can definitely relate that with the American. And yeah, I see a lot of people agreeing in the chat. Yeah, definitely in the chat. So definitely just being curious and being empathetic and understanding to your peers, really important. And I saw some people unmute on the allyship question. So I just want to circle back in case anybody had anything else to add about how can everyone be better allies for the API communities. Oh, okay, cool. I'll move on. Oh,
I'll just quickly add, like another misconception is that I'm not pure-blooded Filipino. Like we have a whole rich history where we have my lineage is from Spain. Like I'm so we're mixed with Spain and we have Chinese blood included. So that's what kind of created this blend of the foods that we have is a lot of Spanish. There's a lot of Spanish dishes and a lot of Spanish in Tagalog. which is what I tried to learn when I was younger. But there's a whole thing where I couldn't speak for 4 years, and they were trying to teach me Spanish and Tagalog, and my grandma was a Spanish teacher, and I got mixed around. So even learning like other languages, which one more thing, international students, and I applaud you all. You guys are amazing because you have to learn 2-3 languages and transition to a society that you don't have any friends, or maybe just one, or maybe one family member, and you're isolated and you're away from people who you can talk to experiences about your experiences from. And you are amazing and you are smart, because even though you can't speak English properly, or to your knowledge properly, you have ideas and you have worth.
Absolutely. I always feel like people, when people make fun of people that have an accent or can't speak like English properly, well, how many languages do you speak? Just one, right? For someone to learn a second language and then to base their livelihood in that second language, that takes bravery. That takes guts.
Yeah, totally. It's always infuriating when you see someone making fun of someone's accent, and it's just like, like, come on, like, can you I think the other thing is also about like understanding that those people that actually came are doing a big thing by learning a new language. Like it's not easy. The Fortunately, like growing up in Singapore, like I was kind of put into a scenario where we had to kind of like learn multiple languages and converse with others, which is like also awesome, but also forces you to think about like, what the struggles are when you're learning a new language and understanding a different community. So it was pretty interesting from my perspective. Like, being in Singapore, kind of fortunate that, we never had this scenario where we were kind of forced to learn other people's cultures because you wanted to get invited to a Chinese New Year dinner or a Deepavali or a Hari Raya celebrations. Those were kind of like a forced thing, but you ended up being more knowledgeable about other communities for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's also like a small thing people can learn, is like learn that other person's like hello, thank you, like start learning their language as well. Just learning a language is hard. I also wanted to add in terms of like what else can people do. It's like if you happen to be in a leadership position or involved in diversity and inclusion efforts, it's like focus not on like the metrics and meeting specific like numbers, but like focus on creating those spaces where people can bring their whole selves and their whole identities, be included in critical discussions, the important stuff that matter.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing. This is really insightful. And I definitely feel I have so much respect for people who move to the US or from like basically learning a second language. Like my first language is Mandarin, and then I basically forgot it because I went to school in the US. But I can imagine how hard it is to be well versed in like a second language. And yeah, and also learning people's languages is also a great way, especially the hellos and thank yous as well. And this leads to our next question with the workplace. How do you embrace your culture at work and in your community, like joining ERGs, sharing stories, or how do you just like amplify API or everybody's voices as allies at work and in your community?
For me, I talk openly about my family traditions and holidays as often as I talk about American holidays and traditions as well, and not try to be like, oh, by the way, Lunar New Year is this is, I'll just like, yeah, we just celebrated Lunar New Year. It's the year of the pig. That's awesome, right? And then like invite people into the conversation, but like ensuring that I have that space to talk about what's important to me and what I celebrate as much as anyone else.
Yeah, I think for me, it's also sharing a lot of stories about like, what do we do in the Sikh community? How do we celebrate some of the festivals and why, what's a certain day, what are certain traditions. But the other thing is also me asking a lot of questions on other API communities? Like, what's the celebration for a South Indian community? How do you celebrate, a certain kind of day? Like, asking questions when someone brings it up, and being inquisitive, and learning about it. So I think those are certain things that we do end up showing up. I think that the whole word of showing up and
Yep.
asking questions, yeah.
Because you help amplify their spotlight.
Mhm.
Even though, for example, I don't really have that many traditions I could share for Filipinos other than, like I said, our parties and our karaoke and our food. So it doesn't really blend in. It doesn't really go into the workplace. It's just me, and I just kind of show up as me. But I am very curious, like, oh, we have you have a festival. Oh, you guys have this. Oh, what's that about? Or what's the history about that? It's just those little simple questions and making them talk, and you just taking a step like 6 back and being like, oh, okay, that's really neat. I didn't know that. Or what's your animal sign, right? What's your Chinese New Year zodiac? Those kind of things are just really simple ways that you can just kind of embed it anywhere.
Yeah. The zodiac animals is like been like since I was a kid, one of my it's kind of like the gateway drug to get like kids around me interested, because it's essentially a personality test too. It's like,
Yeah.
and then right, everyone loves a good personality test and learn about themselves, but it's like, hey, here's a different type of horoscope and all these cultural meaningful things to it, and it's represented this way. It's every 12 years. And it's just like, oh, it's cool. I'm only familiar with like the astrological like horoscope. Here's a different way to learn about it.
Oh, totally. I'm super happy that I'm born in the year of the tiger. So I'm like, totally represents who I am. So it's like
Yeah, I was born in the year of the ox. And
That's my brother's. Mine's
nice.
the goat.
I'm year of the rat, Val. We're together on this. So
Cool. Everyone can share what year you're what zodiac animal you are in the chat.
Yeah.
And yeah.
If anyone says cat, I'm gonna be like, someone's an anime nerd.
I'm gonna raise this up because it was in the chat. I'm really interested by this. One is, how do you make the conversation not feel forceful, and how do you go about with the problem of lack of representation in upper level management? That one's a real hard one to answer.
Yeah, I was gonna raise it up after this as well, but
yeah,
if you all feel comfortable, you want to share, definitely let us know as well. Those are important questions. I'll copy and paste it again in the chat too, so you guys have it.
Okay, I'm a visual. I like to see it too. So it's like, how do you?
And there's two. Let me scroll up. So how do you bring it up without? How will you bring your culture up without sounding forceful? And what do people think? What do people think about the problem, the lack of representation within upper level management in the workforce?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. I think for that second one about diversity in upper management, I think it's if a company talks about diversity and inclusion and as like that's part of their value pillar as well, then it's like, okay, well, you said like this is an important thing, so I'm going to assume that's like an open door to have these follow-up discussions on like how you are implementing it, how are you measuring it, how is it being represented, and that's something I try to advise to my mentees when in terms of the interview, when they talk about like company culture, what does company culture mean? And if they ever bring up like, oh yeah, diversity is really important to us, then it's like, all right, then a follow-up question is like, awesome, that's great. How do you implement it? How do you ensure you're heading in the right direction? What's the North Star here?
How do you go about if they give you a kind of wishy-washy response? Because they'll have their response, I think, ready for that.
Well, to me, questions are always the answer, right? When it's wishy-washy, you can be like, I don't understand what that means. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, and I think Jarrell, I think you're getting along the lines of like, like it is an always predetermined answer.
Yes.
to these questions. And I think the topic that Ying is touching on, like asking questions is always the right way to go. And holding people accountable, especially top management. These are people that are at the top is either because they made their way to the top or they started the whole company. And I think holding them accountable to these like representation and diversifying their upper level management to be inclusive in different types of cultures and different types of beliefs and different types of perspectives. And I think it's very, very important that we do question and we do keep pushing that and challenging the status quo. I think the only way for us to have representation or have an upper management that is diversified is for us to definitely challenge status quo and be able to challenge in the sense of being leading with questions, demanding for answers, being showing up as a person that is able to contribute at that same level. I think if we're like and this might be a little bit controversial, but if I'm questioning someone who is definitely 10 times better than I am about representation, like it defeats the purpose when you want to be able to be there and be represented when you know someone else is being able to contribute more than you can. So I think it's always good to be at that level and be able to ask that questions and push and challenge. But yeah, I think it's very important to us to definitely know that we are at that level first.
Yeah. I think really asking the questions and taking those town hall moments, especially some companies that do that, and inputting your questions and being consistent with those questions, and that can somewhat help. And especially with having a diverse upper management, it's something that you feel you can work towards. And I think there's an ADPList mentor, Mark, and he works for Apple, and I've never seen a Filipino at like that level, and we just bonded instantly. We had that instant connection. He told me things that I knew about myself, but like it just occurred to me that he also experienced it. So that just struck me as like, I want to be mentored by this person because he also shares a connection, and he has probably gone through a lot of things that I've gone through, and we have the same, family structure, family experiences, all that kind of stuff boils up to who we are professionally. And that's something that I want to see represented, because I want to say that's the bullet point that I want to hit. That's the target that I want to get to. And that's empowering. That's empowering to know.
Yeah, because it's so immediate. It's so visual. Like for me, one of the first pages I go to when I look up a company is their about page, and then sub navigation leadership. And then I like, oh, okay. And then it's like, I get an idea. And that informs like if I'm talking to that company, like what types of questions I ask. For sure.
And I think, Jarrell, like you touched about it. Apple's a really good company for representation. Like I recently in the whatever they hold, like the web seminar, they had a representative, a Sikh that did a presentation for the first time, and seeing small little kids look up that there's people like me being up there. I think is so empowering, and it's also, I think that's the future. So the other thing here that I would definitely encourage everyone is to take out opportunities to present, to kind of like, like be there for a company and be the ones that taking that mentorship or like that mantle and saying, hey, yeah, I'll be there to present. I'll be there to represent the whole team. Like, I think that is where you start with the representation. And that's where you like, being up right front face saying that, I see Jarrell there. Yeah, I can represent, like he's my homie. But that kind of thing. And I see Yang, like, oh, wow, a Chinese woman who's up there representing. I think those are things that can inspire others. Sorry, I'm a little bit passionate about this, but it just springs out.
No,
from
I want to
time
add
time.
fuel to that fire. It's good.
Yeah, definitely go ahead. I definitely agree. Like, definitely take opportunities. Like, I always ask myself when I think of doing something scary, like volunteering to speak up at like a very high stakes meeting, is like, what's the worst that can happen? And I'm not gonna get fired, then just go for it. And just ask yourself that question, like, what's the worst that can happen? If something negative happens, and just like keep asking why. And I like also the question that Ying proposed, like kind of like, what do you mean by that when people give you like a canned response? So would love to like reiterate that, because I don't know, I'm going to use that in my life too.
Oh yeah, it's there. I mean, that's from a really good book. Questions are the answer, right? It's you prompt and you probe, but with like without the judgment, with an open curiosity of like, maybe maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe there's more to it. I would like to give space for this other person to elaborate, right? Yeah, my tolerance for those like wishy-washy responses have definitely gone low over the years. So I'm just like, that's awesome. Just tell me more about that. How do you not just hire diverse people, but how do you support, elevate, promote, and give space to them? So it's like not just they're in the door and then it's fine, they've checked off a box, but like, how do you track that? How do you track their ensure that the space is safe and welcoming to them throughout their time at the company?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And we're running a little bit out of time, so we're gonna lead into our last question. And feel free to like continue on if you have anything else to add. So our last question is, what is one advice you would give to your younger self / all designers? Just like one life lesson.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
go. I'll go.
yeah.
I think the conclusion that I've kind of this year has honestly, and I hope that everyone has taken this year to really reflect and to think and to grow and to, because I feel way older than I actually am. I feel like I've already grown up 5-10 years. So a conclusion that I kind of came to is, how do you make yourself comfortable with being uncomfortable? And another conclusion was, how do you show up properly for your friends, your family, your coworkers, everyone at community events? Showing up is so important. It's so hard, and it gets easier. Just there's so many things that you can do, and it's just so many, like LinkedIn is such a hurdle in itself. And I didn't literally touch LinkedIn until March, and I maybe had 300, 400 connections, and now I have 1,500. I just figured it out, because you always figure it out. You'll always figure it out.
For me, if I could go back and talk to my younger self, I'd tell her to buy GameStop stock. And now I think for me, like my advice for younger and all designers is like, reflect on your identities and your experiences in and outside of your career. Like, understand how they are your superpowers, your differentiators and the driving factors behind your unique voice and perspective. I feel like some people may think like their professional life starts at like 22 or 23 or whatever, like but no, like all the experiences that you've had, all the skills that you've developed, they've been happening since you were young. And so that's going to be what sets you apart, what gives you strength. I think it's really important to reflect on your whole experience.
Yeah, I think those are really good advices for sure. Like I think growing deeper into the design field, like my advice to younger designers or designers that are coming into the field, like, be inquisitive, design like a scientist, like experiment, challenge the status quo. Like, that is what designers are, problem solvers. But also do take the time to self-reflect. Like, how are you helping the cause of design? How are you contributing to the cause of design? I think the whole thing of like designers make things pretty is no longer a thing. Designers solve big problems. That's the thing. And I think design thinking is a big word now. Designers live and breathe it every single day. So for me, I think the one thing that I will definitely tell young designers is design like a scientist, experiment, challenge status quo, and be inquisitive. I think those will get you very far in life.
Thank you all so much for sharing. We have a minute left, so we're gonna do our group photo and our wave for our Instagram story. So give it a few moments, people, to fix their hair, bring your cats, whatever you want for a group photo. You can bring your bunnies, bring your pets. And I will also love to share one quick piece of advice is to don't be afraid to speak up and question authority. Like I was always told, especially like my culture, like always told, listen to your elders or like listen to everyone's older than you. But anybody, no matter what age you are, just question your teacher, like, why are we learning this? Question your manager, like, why am I doing this project? And just like ask why and just be curious and just don't be afraid to question people and speaking up if things don't really vibe with you. And with that, we're gonna do a group photo. I'm gonna be Lakuma.
Oh, that's so cute.
Thank you. I always wear this on all my photos. I love the baby Yoda. All right, so we're gonna smile and I'm gonna do all the pages. So there's multiple pages. So ready, set. I have two monitors, so I will have to double check if it actually goes through. Say cheese or say bunnies. Yeah, stay smiling. We have multiple pages. All right, we're gonna do a wave for our Instagram story. So feel free to wave, dance, dab. This is like for a little fun video at the end of all of our events.
Wait, when does it start?
Oh, probably. Are you ready, set, go?
I feel so awkward.
I'm just doing it.
Hello, everybody. Happy Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. We're here with ADPList buddies and mentors on a panel discussion. Very insightful chat. Oh, sorry. I actually cut it off. Yeah. Oh my god, sorry. Retry.
It's like every family. It's like every family photo.
Yeah. Oh god.
We got like 10 iterations. We gotta swap people in.
Yeah. All right. Ready?
Let's not have 10 iterations right now.
All right, ready, set, go. Hello, everybody. We are here with buddies and mentors from Design Buddies and ADPList on celebrating Asian Pacific Islanders for May, which is Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Awesome. Hello, everybody. We are here with. Sorry, I'm hearing myself on camera. I did not turn on my ringer, so it's saved. All right. Thank you all so much for coming. This concludes our event. For all of the hosts, feel free, if you can, stay for 5 minutes for our quick retrospectives and make sure to connect with all of our panelists here. Feel free to plug your links again. And you can find them all on ADPList. So if you ever want mentorship, book mentorship sessions from them, they're all on ADPList too. So I can find them there. And also all their links can be found in the Luma link. So make sure to connect with all of y'all, everyone here as well. And yeah, thank you very much and have a nice day.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you all for sharing your experiences in the chat. I loved how engaging the chat was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I love that people are calling out my purple mattress thing.
I know.